second to last talk of the Unity track, so hopefully everyone's had some fun. And yeah, we're going to be talking to Sylvain, the CTO of Bossa Studios, about jamming with Unity. So please welcome Sylvain.
Hello. Thank you for coming. That's second to last. That's winding down. To listen to talk to me, listen to me talk about game engines, Unity, and game jams. So first thing, classic, who I am. My name is Sylvain Cornillon. I've been a game developer for 16 years. I mostly am a coder. I've done some design a bit and some production, but I worked in companies like Ubisoft on Splinter Cell 1 and 2, also on Brothers in Arms. I was at EA Criterion working on Black, and then I moved to Codemasters where we worked on Body Count. So a lot of console first-person shooter, third-person shooter games at the beginning of my career. And then in the last 2 years, I've joined Bossa Studios, completely different profile as a CTO over there. And even more recently, Mike Bissell convinced me to start tweeting. So yesterday, actually, I now have a Twitter handle. He doesn't know which monsters he's created. So, who are we at Bossa Studios? So I don't know, how many of you have heard of Surgeon Simulator? Okay, cool, great. How many of you knew it was made at Bossa Studios? Yeah. How many of you knew of any of the other games that are next to on the front page? Well done. We're mostly known for Surgeon Simulator, which was created as at a global game jam by a team of 4 people. I wasn't part of that team, so that presentation isn't going to be about how we made Surgeon Simulator, though I can answer all the questions at the end if you want. We made a lot of different games before that. We started with Monster Mine, which was it's a Facebook game, Flash-based. It's a city builder, and it earned Bossa a BAFTA 3 years ago now. Then it was followed by Merlin, which is tie-in with the Merlin license on the BBC, and it's also on Facebook, also in Flash, but that's an RPG. Then Surgeon Simulator happened February last year, but at the same time we released Deep Dungeons of Doom on mobile platform and tablets. And also we're doing some games like 12, which is an educational game with some of our partners. So that's the output of Bossa Studios in the last 3 years. We've got a lot of games. A few games are on their way still now. And as you can see, there is no common denominator there. There is no genre, there is no common genre, there is no common platform, there is no common art style. So how do I work as a, how do we get there at Bossa? So, second random interactive survey, how many of you are using Unity? Wow, okay, almost all of you. How many of you have been in game jams? Wow, a lot of you. More tricky, how many of you have contributed to a game that has sold at least 1 copy? Okay, a few less. Okay, that'll be relevant at the end. Sorry. So, first I'll start with my history with game engines. As I said, I worked at Ubisoft, at EA, at Codemasters, and I've got a bit of history with multiple different engines from a tech and a code point of view. So my first experience was in the mid-'80s. I was still a teenager. I was at school, and I had a conversation with a friend of mine, seen an article about software that allowed you to make a game by just pulling characters together. So bear in mind, that was before Scum. That was before that time, LucasArts. And so my point of view, I knew a bit of coding, just a little bit of basic, and I knew that you had to code every behavior. And so my idea was, no, that's not possible. You have to code everything. You have to write the code for everything. And that's when I said something to the amount of there is no such thing as game engines. Obviously, that was the first of a statement about game engines that might have been right at the time, but proved out to be wrong. So, in the late 90s, when I was starting my career at Ubisoft, Ubisoft had an in-house engine, and they've shipped some games with it. And after shipping a few games, we did some prototyping. At that time, Unreal was coming out. Quake engine was also getting available for teams to use. And so we did some prototyping, and what my statement at the time, which might have been true at the time, was it's great for prototypes, but you're going to end up shipping your prototype. And that was a bad thing when I said that. I mean, you're going to keep adding things, keep adding features, and then your performance is going to get worse and worse, and you're not going to be able to optimize it. You're not going to understand everything. And then when you're going to ship on console, you're going to have bugs you don't understand. You're not going to be able to ship, and your game is not going to be the quality it should be. Now, little did I know, I think the next year after I said that, Ubisoft started working on Splinter Cell on Xbox, which was using Unreal. And I joined the PS2 team, and we used Unreal to ship a game. We had to write a lot of our own code on the PS2 to make it happen, but because we had the source code, we actually figured out all the problem, optimized what we needed to optimize, which leads me to my next statement. Middleware game engine are okay, but you need the source code, because if you don't have the source code when you ship, you're going to be in trouble. You're going to have bugs you can't control. You're going to have things you're not going to be able to manage. And so it's all right, but that Unity thing, that you don't have the source code, so that's not going to work. And then in 2012, that's not when Unity started, that's when I started using Unity, when we started using Unity at Bossa. We made the choice, when I joined, the company was using Flash at the time, and then I joined, and my mission was to find a new game engine, and we went for Unity. So why did we start using Unity at Bossa? So first thing is, what's my job at Bossa? The first thing, as I said, I didn't code Surgeon Simulator. But my job is to be sure that all the technical aspects work smoothly. We're not a company that does technology. So it's not to push the envelope on the technology. That's not my job. We're a company that makes games and ships games. So my job is to guarantee that everything happens smoothly. Now, I mean, as Mike actually said yesterday, because we make games, we want to be sure that the code is just a means to an end. For me, that's always been for me. Even though I'm a coder, the code has always been a means to an end. And because I'm not a designer, what am I doing then? So my job, I considered, is always to empower the creative people to be able to do the best job they can do. And I don't want to be the guy that tells them, no, you can't do this, or it's going to take 3 months. I want to be the guy that say, yeah, no problem. So my job is basically to liberate or empower. I wanted to use empower, but that's way too marketing a word for. But that's the right word, actually. I want to be sure that they can be creative and they can do what they want to do. So what was important in our decision for us? So the first thing was multi-platform. That allows both the designers and the business people to be empowered to make decisions. They can choose whichever platform they go on. They can decide which control scheme they want to go on. Now that's a perfect idea for a touch game. Okay, let's go on touch. There's no limitation there. They don't have to. We can't say, oh no, you can't do that. We can't change that platform. And a small aside on the multi-platform aspect. For me, I haven't heard many people give enough credit to Unity and Unreal before them for changing the tone of the conversation between the developers and the platform holders, and being sure that basically by being multi-platform, we we can choose which platform we go on. And when you're a small team or one-man team or a small team, you don't have the resources to go on all platforms anyway. So you're going to pick the one that's the best to you. And also through a few enlightened platform holders that allow self-publishing, that changed in turn the relationship between the developers and the publishers, and puts the developers in quite a strong position. If they have something that is good, a good game, then they're in a very strong position. I think even people who don't use Unity, they benefit from that because the conversation had changed. So that was an important aspect for us. Another aspect is I don't consider coders as, I consider coders in the team as also creative people. And Unity has a strong scripting language with C#. We don't use Unity script, Mike. But it's a strong language that allows coders to leverage all their skills. Everything they learn, they can use. Now, it's not ideal for all of them. They're not all happy with it, but they're happy with it, but it allows them at least to use their skills and to get the best out of what they've learned. And so they can create new features and very powerful things. They're not limited by the scripting language, which could be a problem with certain game engines. And finally, the asset pipeline is quite important for the artists. So they need to be empowered and creative. When we were at Codemasters, we built our own engine for body count, which basically had to do the same thing as Unity does. You want to just get an asset, drop it in a folder, it gets converted, all the dependencies get managed. This is a very complicated problem. It's amazing what Unity does with this. We had to build our own. And the problem was, if you have something that worked 99% of the time, and you got 20 artists doing 50 asset imports a day, that's 1,000 imports, that's 10 that fail a day. Every time they have to click the button, rebuild all, it's 10, 20 minutes lost. They completely lose confidence in the tool, and they waste hours just watching a scroll bar going through. And it's just that from 99% to 100% that just kills your tool pipeline and the comfort for the artist. So with Unity, they can work in whatever they want, whichever channel they want, as long as it's exposed to FBX, they're fine. And that liberates the coders, that frees the coders from working on code rather than supporting the art team to get stuff done. So that ticked all the boxes for us in terms of doing this. Now, a more practical aspect for us, I'm going to go through that. It works on Mac and PC. We've got people working on Mac, people working on PC. It's all free to choose whichever platform you want. We've got people that work on PC with Visual Studio, Unity VS, ReSharper, and they're really, really efficient with that. Some people prefer working on Mac because they do some artwork at the same time. The guy who worked on Surgeon did all of that on Mac. And he uses a VM to run Visual Studio because he still wants Visual Studio. And some people just use MonoDevelop. So it works on both platforms. That's great for us. Another thing is everybody's got a plugin for Unity, or almost, or they should. But basically, most service providers for analytics, for achievements, they will have a plugin for Unity which allows to integrate very quickly. And so that was quite positive for us. Obviously, it's easy to learn. I mean, you all know that, but it's the Stack Overflow and the forums were, really a great source for everybody to transition to Unity when we make that choice. And the asset zone, I covered that yesterday. I agree with him 100%. We reinvent the wheel way too much. We don't have to. We should. Now, it's not perfect. So that's Murillo. They put that on Twitter yesterday. It's not perfect. There are always a few things that don't work perfectly. That's on a pillar in our office now. So the question is always, what is Unity's way? Fee covered that yesterday in that it seems like there is a Unity way, but actually when you look at it, there's so many different ways to do anything. For me, it stems from Unity being too nice, giving you access to all the data. We didn't have that when we were working on in-house at Game Engine. It was all hard-coded data structures, and so we couldn't access everything. We had to be structured in how we did things. That gives so much freedom in Unity that it's really easy to do things the wrong way. And what I say is it doesn't make you a better coder using Unity. It makes you better at making games and shipping games maybe, but it doesn't make you a better coder. If you want to be a better coder or a better artist, even, you have to learn that separately. I mean, it can get you there, it can help you along the way a bit, but it can teach you very bad practices if you're not careful. There's half the code on the internet for Unity is not very good practice. Also, there's no source code. I say it wasn't a problem. We haven't shipped on console yet, so I don't know, but it's never been a problem until now. We'll see if in the future it's a problem for people who try to ship on most modern consoles to not have the source code. But yeah, it didn't seem to be a problem on the previous generation. So, but it's a risk. When you know that, who doesn't know about the scene merging issues? There's some solution that seems to be coming, but not yet fully working. And so for us, it works at Bossa because we're small teams, 5 people on a project or something like that. But as soon as you're more than one, anyway, you start having problems and need to organize that. Again, there is no Unity way. I mean, there's no clear Unity way to do that. Everybody kind of does it differently. So that's not that can become a problem. And the last thing is the new platforms. Once you've chosen to go to Unity, you spend the learning, even though it's quite cheap, but you don't want to go to a platform that doesn't have Unity. So that's almost an excluded. You don't even consider it as a business possibility until Unity decides to go there or signs a deal. And so it's a bit, we're at the mercy of that, but that's a small compromise for us. Now, you might have realized I haven't talked about game jams yet. So when we made the decision of we're going to Unity, that didn't even come in the conversation. But we've been doing game jam at Bossa since the beginning, even Flash time. So I want to cover a bit why we're doing game jams at Bossa. Why is it a thing, an important thing for us? And I'm going to start with the thing I know the least about. It gives the creative freedom to the team. Game jams are more of a baby of one of our founders, but one of the aspects that it gives freedom to the team to explore ideas, so they don't get them, they don't keep them inside, and then while they're working on something else, or try to push them into a game that's not the right game for that idea. They can go and explore that, and so it's a powerful tool, and also it's the cheapest way for us to explore new ideas. We don't have to have a team. We just go game jam at regular intervals. If people have good ideas, they'll just go and explore them. So, a bit more my thing. It reinforces the make it work mentality. Well, what does that mean? I've got a motto that I apply in coding, and I can make a talk about that one day, but it's about, say, for coding, you have to make it work and then make it right. And you need to do the 2 bits. And that's it's really important to me. And I'm the type of guy who likes to make it right. But when you make games, you need to ship them, you need to finish them, and knowing that sometime you have to make it work is great, and that reinforces, Game Jam reinforces the make it work thing. It's just go and do something that works, whatever the cost, just make something that works. Some people are great at that, and they're great at Game Jams. Some people are great at make it right, and like me, and then it's a bit of a different story. It gives a change of space to the team, so they can change the normal routine of the games and the game they're working on, and they can explore just something different. It changes the what they're doing on a day-to-day. At Bossa, we have a very important aspect, which is sharing. We got the meeting every week that we call Share the Love, where we share the business. We all sit down together and we share the business opportunities and what's going on all the project and all that. But we share also knowledge. We have meetings that are called Share the Knowledge. But we also share with other teams. We've got a VR meetup in London where we get everybody in to try different kit that we have and people have, and that's really a great opportunity. If you're in London, you should come. And it allows the game jam allows to share with other teams and contractors that have worked with us and come back just for the game jam, or go outside on external game jams and global game jam and that kind of thing, and enjoy sharing that knowledge to get better. We have a philosophy that on our own we're not strong enough, because we're a 13 people team. That's pretty large for an indie, but we have to benefit from people around, and that's a way of doing it. And finally, it just worked for us. That's an important way of doing things. So just to explain, we've had more than 10 game jams. I think there was some before I started. Doing those 10 game jams in 3 years, we've had definitely more than 14 games that have been produced. We've pushed around 6 games further than the game jam. We've said, oh, that's a great idea. Let's pursue it. And 2 games got released. Surgeon Simulator, that came from a global game jam, and Deep Dungeons of Doom, that came from a game jam mini-boss. And so, and we got 3 games currently that we're at different stage of development that come from game jam. So it works for us. The game that we get out of this are exciting, interesting. The team is excited about them. They're relatively small in scope, so they fit what we're doing, and so that really works for us. Now, so game jams, Unity. Now jamming with Unity. So it just worked when we were doing our game jams. We just ended up having using Unity for it for most people. Not the whole team was using Unity from the beginning, but you can learn Unity in 2 days. What we realized, people who weren't using Unity, they moved on to Unity, and in 2 days they learn to produce something in Unity, and they learn enough to be doing something. Now it's a dreadful 2 days for them. They don't produce. As a game jam is terrible. You produce very little. You're not happy, but at the end of it, you've learned Unity, and it's a new skill. You can work on Unity when you need to. Allows, as I said, people to try different disciplines. We've had people that, because they're so easy, there is no technicalities almost of doing an asset. You generate your asset, you put it in the game. There is no. So we've had QA guys doing music for doing the game jam. We've had designers doing art. We've had marketing people doing design. You can do everything, and you can try different things. And so that's really that makes people more flexible in the company, and so that after they've learned the skill, it's just so much easier later. Another thing is with Unity, you don't have to worry about the future. Whether you're going to reuse the code you generated for the game jam or whether you're not, whether you're going to be on the platform you coded the game jam or you realize that's a better game for a different platform, or whether you want to, you're not happy with the quality of your code. None of that really matters. You don't have to think about those limitations. We'll be able, if the game is good, we'll be able to push it forward. Network is the only issue there. If we have network things, it becomes a bit more complicated. And another thing, obviously, full disclosure, I'm here and invited by Unity, but they've been supporting us a lot during the game jams. At the beginning, when we used Unity, we had 1 or 2 licenses, and then 3, and then 4. But for game jams, they've always been giving us trial licenses for the game jam with full access to everything for the whole duration of the game jam and a bit beyond. It got to a point where Andy Bramall was just renewing our license, knowing that the game jam was coming, rather than actually asking us whether we had a game jam. So this was the day before the game jam, get an email. So that's great support, and that's been really useful to get everybody on board. Now we have enough license to cover almost everybody, so we use it less, but it was really important at the beginning, at least. So yeah, it's been a perfect match for us. Not everybody wants to use Unity for game jams all the time. Sometimes they use it for external game jam. They use their personal game engine that they've built or this kind of thing. But in the office, for our game jam, we use Unity almost everywhere for almost all the projects. And that's been really, really good. So what we learned about game jams as a company, what we learned. The first thing is the hit rate is quite low. You've seen the numbers I've told you, it's 42. But that's high enough for us. It's a cheap way of trying things, but still, you're not going to be one game jam, one game success. Some people are, and they're lucky, but not everybody is going to be. And also, we got better at it. The more you do, the better you get at it. Game jam get tiring. we've at some point had one game jam every month, 2 days every month, where you're very intense activity. As I said, it's not always easy for everybody, and so you lose the traction on the creative aspect sometimes. It ebbs and flows. It's not always a great experience for everybody. We learned that we need to try different ways of doing them. We tried completely free and open game jams where there is nothing. You arrive in the morning on Thursday morning, you find a few people and you go, oh, well, let's do something about that. And you go, or you've tried something that you've thought about and you need to coerce people into helping you doing it during the game jam. Or the most successful we had was we'd spend one day completely just doing ideas and then 4 days developing those ideas. And that's the most recent, and that was really successful. Got a lot of stuff out of that. That was really useful. So basically, what we learned also is constraint and structure is a good thing, can be and is a good thing for game jams. Set constraints. We've removed the technical constraints with Unity, so we need to set other constraints which are better, creative constraints. Let's make a game for this market. Let's make a free-to-play game. Let's make a premium game. Let's make this. You can think about these things in completely different ways, and you can experiment. So basically, it's better if you go in a game jam with a clear goal. What we learn also is that once you've done the game jam and it's all good, then you need to make it right at some point. You can't just take a game jam game and just keep game jamming on it and keep prototyping on it and just ship it. That you at some point have to sit down, look at what the game is, what it does, and rewrite some code and make things right, because otherwise, you know, that's just normal development processes. But it's tempting to just trot along with a game. Now, what I personally learned about game jams, first thing, I come from, you know, AAA console games, no game jam. That there is no such thing as a game jam. It was being considered at the end, and now some companies do it. But what I realized is, for us, game jams is not a reward. It's not about saying, oh, thank you to the team, go and have fun from it. It's not. It's part of our creative process. It's an important part of what we do. We're very serious about it. We stop everything. And the result also, it's not always the most happy thing. What one we realize is happy teams make good game jam, not the other way around, at least for us. When the team was unhappy with what they were doing during the day or during the week, when they got to the game jam wasn't good. It's when they worked on exciting stuff during the day that they were excited and really creative and got really good stuff out of the game jam. So I think that's, you know, you have to take that as a serious aspect of what we do and not just a throwaway thing. I'll say for me, game jams are stressful. They're really dreadful. I'm not good at game jams, sorry. You might have thought that I've come here and talk about game jams and be good at it. I'm not good at it. I like to make things right. I don't code as much during the normal time, and when I go to the game jam, I want to contribute the best I can, and it's through coding. And I still want to make things right, and the only time I get to code is the time where I need to hack it together to make it work. And so that's a bit of a difficult process for me, but that's good, because I learn how to get things done, make things done quickly, because with the experience in AAA stuff, you take ages to do anything, and nothing happens quickly, and I needed to learn that skill, so that's been helpful for me a lot. Another thing I've learned from me personally is you're in or you're out. If you're a manager or if you're involved in marketing and you have some campaign to run during that time, you can't be half in, half out. You need to choose. If you can't contribute, if you can't participate fully, then be out, because otherwise you can mess things up. It's not very helpful. So that's for the the people who are involved, especially with the marketing of even your own game. If you got things to do, you're not going to be able to contribute as much. And finally, back to the question of why you should ship a game. It's not a game yet. There's a lot of work. Surgeon Simulator was made in 2 days, and then it spent 2 months to ship the game that was shipped, go through Greenlight and get it shipped on Steam. And that's the easiest platform to ship to. You push a button and you're shipped. As long as you've been approved to be on the platform, you push a button and you're shipped. If you look at iOS, you got days, weeks before you get approved. You got people looking at the code and maybe looking at the build and saying, no, you're not through. It's even worse on console. there's a lot of stuff that's not covered by what you do in a game jam. So you can put your game jam out there, but it's important to get through the process of actually pushing a game out of the door and having, even if it's your mom, having it in a platform where someone can spend money to buy it. Even if it's one copy, even if it's a free copy on an iOS, on the App Store, at least you've gone through the process of doing all those steps, because they're not the happy steps of making a game. They're the drudge of making a game. And the Game Jam doesn't cover that, but you have to know that it's coming after if you have a successful game. And that's it. So now you can ask me all the technical question you want to ask me, because that wasn't technical at all. Is there any question? Yeah, microphone.
Hello. When you are prototyping a game, at which point do you think it's good enough to start thinking about monetization, or at which point do you actually think about it, and do you have some kind of method with what you use?
So we consider prototyping slightly differently, and we've done prototyping slightly differently from game jams themselves. What happened is some games that are in game jam become prototypes. Some game went to prototype from just an idea someone had, and we just say, oh, that's a cool idea, let's make a prototype. That was never a game jam. And prototype is stuff you do during work hours. You spend. The guy who did Surgeon Simulator mostly, Tom Jackson, is also Quick Fingers. You can find him everywhere. If you've got technical question, you need to ask him. He's got. He used to be our prototyper. He would spend 2 weeks on an idea, and that's all he did. To a point where, at the beginning, before we understand what Game Jam was about, we thought it was unfair that he contributed to Game Jam, so he was out of the Game Jams. So now, obviously, he's not, because we've realized that's not the best idea. But the point is, prototyping, we usually don't think too much about monetization, but we've experimented with different places of putting the thinking about monetization. We've experimented with putting it at the idea stage, including monetization at the idea stage. Surgeon there was no thought about monetization. We just had a game and said, okay, well, that's great. What can we sell it? Yes, it's a X hour game. It's improved since then, but it was quite short at the beginning. It's going to have to be premium, and that was it. Now Monster Mine and Merlin were free-to-play games, so we put it at the right stage, and now we put it after the game jam. We've had some game jam where the theme was not monetization, but habitual gaming, games where you would play longer than just a few hours. So we have huge debates about monetization and the different ways of monetizing. Luckily, Steam came to our help with a great talk, so we now know how to do it right.
Thank you.
Hi. You mentioned that it's good to introduce some constraints at the beginning of a game jam to help drive the creativity. Could you give an example of some of the constraints you've had for a game jam?
So one of them was habitual gaming. That was one of the latest one, where we said it needs to be a game that people would play for a long time. So we had first a one-day idea jam about just what type of game you can play for a long time. But before we'd had, that needs to be a touch game on a tablet. What else we had? It very varied. Some of them were just practical, structural constraint. You need to have a game ID, and in the week before the game jam, you need to present your ID, and you need to get people to buy into your ID, because if you're on your own, you can't. There's one rule in our game jams is you can't do a game jam on your own. You need to have a team with you. You need to have people with you. And also you need to present the results. You can't say, well, I didn't do anything. So yeah, that's the type of constraints, but they can be structural in the way you decide things. They can be thematic. We've had different ways. Yeah.
Sorry, excuse me. do you do your game jams sort of 9 to 5 during work day?
Yeah, so we do them, most of them, they're all during work days. The internal game jams, they're during work days. They are, yeah, they're kind of 9 to 5, but they're not exactly 9 to 5. People push a bit more, but that's why it gets tiring if you do that every month. Every month you're guaranteed you will have 2 days where you're going to spend overnight on it. It's really down to people and what they can do, but it's during work days, Thursday, Friday usually. We've had a game jam that was 4 days, so that was like bank holiday and then 4 days of a full week of game jam. But also we have, if people go as Bossa to an external game jam during a weekend, they get time back. So we assume they're not going to be, they're going to take 2 days off. And they also get some, we pay for some food and stuff like that if they want to. But they can go on their own name, they can do what they want.
Yeah. Hello. I was thinking, like, do you have any sort of ideas on like how Unity compares to other game development middlewares or game creation toolkits like UDK or GameMaker, Construct2, Stencil, like as a prototyping platform for like agile stuff in games, game jams?
I have to say, recently we've decided to go for Unity, and so my comparison come from what I've learned of these engines before. I don't know actually how those how effective those games are. We've looked at some of them during the process where we were deciding about those rule of things, and I had an open process where I asked the whole coding team about what they were we changed in, and we looked at a bunch of engines, and I was like, okay, I'm going to have to ease them into accepting Unity because I already knew it was the best option. And we had a meeting and everybody sat down, even people who had their own game engine, even people who use other game engines, they just said, no, we need to use Unity. That's the one that meets all our requirements. At the time, UDK and Unreal was a bit too hard to install. I know they've improved some of that. I've asked them yesterday. So, and GameMaker, some people use GameMaker. I don't know exactly how they compare for prototyping. We've don't have the luxury to go and look too regularly. We spent that time a year and a half ago, so that's where my knowledge comes from. Any other questions? Yes? No? We're good? Okay. Thank you very much.